Hello and welcome again to the Skillwork Forum. Thank you for joining me. As always, my name's Tim. I'm joined here with my partner, Brett. We get together on this podcast really just talk about things surrounding skilled trades in general, but more importantly, what does it look like to run a business, engage employees, manage them, and do all the things necessary to move our organizations forward. So in that vein, we've been doing this series that has to do with really staffing your talent, managing your talent, kind of an overall HR series. And we're on part 3 of that today. We did the first part about how to attract talent to your organization. Then, okay, now that you have them, how do you keep them? We're really happy to have with us today Kevin Hensel from BetterCulture. They're good friends of ours, other at BetterCulture. We're going to talk about how do we develop this culture that not only retains them, but actually engages your employees. You have to continually foster that relationship with them. So Kevin, thank you for joining us today on the Skillwork Forum. And if you maybe give us a little bit of your background, what it's like to work with BetterCulture and the team there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good morning. Thanks for inviting me to participate this morning. It's nice to be with both of you. So as mentioned, I am a senior consultant with BetterCulture. I've been on board with the team for about a year, but I've known the folks at BetterCulture for pushing 20 years now, I suppose. I come to the team having utilized the BetterCulture curriculum for the last several years at a couple of different organizations that I was engaged with. But long-term background, learning and development, training and development have been the thread through my career for most of my career. I was a trainer at Boys Town here in Omaha for almost 10 years. I was the national training director for Burlington Capital for about 10 years, and then worked as a leadership consultant with the state of Nebraska for several years. So leadership development and training and development have been just passions of mine for quite some time. Ended up getting a master's degree in organizational leadership through Bellevue University several years ago. It is top of mind with me all the time.
That's great. Thank you for that. And we definitely have an expert with us. So we're looking forward to picking your brain a little bit. And we're just going to, have a conversation here about that. And, feel free to take us where your experience and the topics lead us. But we got a couple of questions we want to throw out there. And I think Brett's going to kick things off.
Yep. Welcome, Kevin. It's probably kind of an obvious question, or it should be obvious to all of us. But, why does employee engagement matter, and why should companies have a strategy around it as opposed to just kind of, some companies don't have a strategy around it. They just hope it happens. And so, but why does it matter?
Well, to your point, Brett, culture will always happen, right? It's determining whether the culture ends up being what it is you actually want it to be. And therefore it takes intention and purpose and vision to really form the culture that it is that you're looking for. Otherwise, you're always going to get one, but you're just left to its own devices. A lot of times when organizations are talking about culture, people may go to kind of fluffy, ethereal, these soft skills. And a lot of that are definitely components come into culture. But at BetterCulture, we're capitalists. We are interested in businesses being successful. So we've designed what we call the leadership loop that really links leadership defining that culture, what that healthy culture looks like, right? And if we work backwards, ultimately our goal is to have business success, right? Well, in order to have business success, you've got to have a strong reputation in the marketplace in order to continue to be able to compete and be successful. Well, in order to have that strong reputation, you've got to have quality outcomes. Your work product has to be excellent, right? You've got to be wowing your customers. You've got to have raving fans. Well, in order to do that, you've got to have quality team members who are committed to excellence and producing excellent work, right? So that's our leadership loop backwards. If we run it the other way, it starts with, you've got to make quality hires and then set expectations of how your culture is going to be, how you expect people to engage, right? And that engagement then leads to that constant focus on performance and excellence, which again leads to your satisfied customers, your raving fans, your reputation, and your continued business success. So we like to say better culture equals better business.
It's really good. A couple of things there. The idea that you're going to end up with a culture, it's whether you do it intentionally or it just happens through inertia. So,
right.
So when you get go off, script a little bit here, I'm just thinking about that. What you espouse here and talk about leadership really drives the culture. It starts from the top, right? So it's their responsibility. I think that answers that question. But what happens in organizations to get this, where you don't intentionally drive culture from the top? Does it just become whoever's the loudest voice?
Absolutely. Very much so, right? Who are the influencers, right? I like to say an easy definition of leadership is influence. It's not a position. It's not a title. It's who is going to be an influencer. And oftentimes, unfortunately, some of those influencers are influencing in negative ways. And so it's really going back to that kind of identifying, what do we want this culture to be? What do we want that influence to be? How do we be very specific around those behaviors and attitudes that we want as part of our culture? And then how do we end up teaching that, reinforcing that, and holding people accountable to that?
So it's not like HR responsibility to foster and to manage culture then. And that kind of was one of our thoughts. It's traditionally that's HR's job. And that you would say that's incorrect.
That is incorrect. HR certainly has a role in that, right? Typically, as we're oftentimes having performance conversations and running evaluation programs and processes, all of that certainly is integrated into the evaluation and reinforcement and movement of culture. But we believe that it's really at the executive level, at that C-suite level, that's where the definition of what we want the culture to be starts. That vision is cascaded down through the organization. And probably most importantly, the modeling of that culture happened at the top so that folks aren't in a, well, do as I say, but not as I do kind of situation, right? That's gonna catch you every time.
Yep, for sure. So, you said it, which speaks well to Tim and I, that you guys are capitalists, and so, because we are too, and so never apologize for a profit. And so in that light, there's this desire for culture, but the ultimate is how does it drive result, which, for a lot of it is, it's probably tied to engagement. Peter Drucker, famous line, culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. But is it possible to have a great culture but lack employee engagement? Because, that seems like an oxymoron, but...
Right. Well, I guess it depends on how you define culture, right? Could everybody be coming to work and having a great time and they've all got their best friends and the beer keg rolls out at 3:00, right? But you've got to balance that, exactly to your point, with performance. Culture in a business organization is about people coming to work and being engaged and committed to excellence and committed to the outcomes in an environment that they're enjoying what they're doing and who they're doing it with, right? So it's not just about let's have a good time, which is, unfortunately, when we talk culture with some organizations or some leaders, they're equating culture to, oh, we just want everybody to be happy. Well, yeah, of course, right? We want people to enjoy their work, but they're coming to work to produce. How do we create an environment that makes that as pleasant as possible, right? That I do enjoy what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with, and maybe the physical place in which I'm doing it, right? Now what happens? Gosh, I'm not doing the Sunday night dreading that Monday's coming along, or I'm not doing the Wednesday hump day, can't wait for Friday to get to the things that I really enjoy. Heck no, right? I have a personal motto that life's too short not to have fun. And we spend too much time working not to be having fun. Why can't those two things be the same? Sounds a little Pollyanna, but with intention, it can end up happening.
Yeah, I mean, the old phrase, if you enjoy what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And that the classical definition of work where it's drudgery. So I think you've given us some really good indicators of healthy company culture. And, Brett and I will look in the mirror and say the culture that we have really is a direct reflection of our leadership at our particular company. So we need to own that. So if we were to assess our company or any company out there, what are some key indicators that, hey, that's a healthy culture versus unhealthy?
One of the key indicators is mood, literally, right? How do people feel? What's the mood of the environment? As you walk through, what are you experiencing? Are you seeing people smiling and laughing and engaging with each other in a positive manner, right? That's a huge key indicator right off the bat. I'm going to make a little fun, but at least back in the old days, the secretary that took attendance, right, in the grade school, why was she always one of the most miserable people, right? And I don't know what that culture was like, but it was always, you had this kind of crotchety, angry woman who was at the front desk as you went into the elementary school to check in. Well, that sets the tone, right? Right there, that tells me, if I'm having that experience, what's behind the rest of the curtain there, right? And it may be that individual, but if that individual is allowed to be engaging in that manner, it still speaks to what the possibilities are for the rest of the culture. Another key indicator, of course, is either retention or turnover, right? Are folks sticking around? We believe good people have the right to work with good people. And so if you've got you may have high turnover, but hopefully it's because you've defined that culture and we've had some unfortunate hires that may not fit. But what we don't want, of course, are the good people leaving because they're tired of tolerating the bad people in the organization, right? So,
yeah, that's great. That's key. And it's interesting you say that because you're right. You can go into any organization, a store, a coffee shop, Fortune 500, you can pretty much tell pretty quickly. People have noted coming into our, headquarters facility here that they see that people are enjoying themselves. So we try not to drink our own bathwater, but I do believe that is an important aspect. So,
well, and not to interrupt your thought there, Tim, but it goes back to leadership being incredibly intentional about every detail that they want their culture to be, right? Down to the way people smile and engage with outside clients as well as internally, right? It's the very specific attitudinal and behavioral norms that are the expectations to get the results that you're looking for.
No, it's good.
Are you a maintenance technician looking for your next work opportunity? Skillwork is the premier travel staffing agency focused exclusively on finding jobs for skilled labor talent like you. Our employment model combines work plus freedom, helping you find jobs you love in facilities that are spread across the country. Our travel contracts include competitive pay and even allowances for housing and per diem. Skillwork exists to connect skilled workers with companies that need them. And our philosophy and how we run our business is simple: to honor God in all we do, bring respect back to the skilled trades, and positively impact those around us. For more information on how to work for Skillwork, visit skillwork.com or call us at 402-447-7058. Call us today. We'd love to work with you.
So kind of along that line, and whether in your past experience or maybe, specific to kind of BetterCulture's tactics or strategies or methodologies. So getting employees and employers to shift from a mindset of just, work is work, like Tim said a minute ago, the view that work is drudgery, I just got to get through it and then get on with something I enjoy. But, into the idea that it's engaging and, there's communication, transfer, all those types of things. So kind of, maybe a little bit tactical or your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think one of the most important things, Brett, is being sure that you have great leaders in place that have received the training necessary to be a great leader or meet the expectations of leadership within your organization. Well, first and foremost, people's experience is going to be a direct result of their immediate supervisor, right? Typically, folks do not leave companies, they leave supervisors. And so that immediate leader, that immediate supervisor is the individual who has as much of an impact on someone's experience as anyone else in the organization. But what we find far too frequently is oftentimes folks are put into leadership positions because of either technical skills, right? They're really good at the job they're already doing, or tenure. They've been with the organization for a long time, so it's not just now their turn. Typically, technical skills and tenure do not always equate to good leadership skills. It's a completely different skill set, right? Now, that's not to say that those individuals with tenure and great technical skills can't also have good leadership skills, but it's not going to happen automatically. There has to be intentionality around training those individuals that we're seeing as great leaders in the organization to be the great leaders. and then assessing and determining whether indeed they have those skills or whether they're better suited just to continue in a technical role.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It's always challenging to all of us. We've all been in a variety of organizations. And like you said, that is the pattern. You take your best salesperson and you make them a sales leader, or you take your most tenured person and you make them this, and we as leaders have to own the responsibility is, have we prepared them for that role, or are they even the right person for that role? It's always a reminder.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Drucker or Jim Collins or one of those guys that said you get promoted to the level of mediocrity at some point.
Yep.
We've seen that enough, but I'm just thinking about somebody that is listening to this that's stuck in an organization where maybe they're working for one of those leaders that just, got elevated. What do you tell somebody who's stuck at a company that, the culture's bad? How do you lead when you're not necessarily at the top driving culture?
Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to the definition of leadership is influence. You may be not in a position of leadership, but you can be in a position of influence to change the culture within a team, right? We've been talking about organizational culture, but really you're in a team of 2, 3, 5 people. How can you be that model? How might you be the influencer to move people to the light rather than being pulled to the dark, if you will, right? Especially when I was working with the state, and not at all working or knocking the state, but there is a reputation there of mediocrity, right?
So I've heard. This gets recorded, so we have to say we love the government. That's our official position.
You're right. And there are a lot of great people. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have not necessarily been held accountable to excellence, right? They're doing their job and things are getting done, but we're talking about a culture of excellence. And again, maybe you're not going to be able to influence the entire organization, but how can you make your world and the people immediately around you enjoy coming to work, enjoy their actual work better, and the process of doing that work, right? And then what happens, and again, I'm going to sound a little Pollyanna, but it's reality, right? Then another team looks over and goes, how come they're so happy over there, right? What do we need to be doing in order to be able to be like that? And so suddenly it's a little bit of a ripple effect, right? Of if we can get enough people to come to the light, right? They start influencing within their immediate sphere of influence. And then suddenly that starts to ripple out and connect to other areas.
Yeah, it really is kind of you become an evangelist.
Yeah.
For, the good news of, advocating for a better culture, being an influencer for good. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and then, on the flip side, and not to sound negative, if you've been enlightened, let's say that, gosh, I think things could be better. Well, certainly take it upon yourself to be an influencer and try to make things better. But if you're not able to move the needle, it's time to have the courage maybe to look somewhere else. And again, I'm not advocating that people quit their job and go elsewhere. But now we're back to our philosophy that good people have the right to work with good people.
Yeah, it's no sense being miserable. Life's too short not to have fun. Life's too short to work in a toxic environment and be miserable. So,
right.
As you guys are out there and you're working with companies and businesses and so forth, and obviously everybody wants to improve their culture, what are the common mistakes that you see? Is it, hey, we'll get some beanbag chairs and a ping pong table, and like you said, beer keg at 2:00 on Friday. I was in one of those companies once. What pitfalls do you see?
Yeah, probably the biggest pitfall is an organization saying they want a better culture and then not taking the time to commit to all of the pieces that you have to recognize to make that happen. It is not just buying a few bean bags, a ping pong table, and making sure we've got beer in the fridge for Friday afternoon. It's taking a look at, gosh, where are we? How do I spend the time envisioning what it is that we really want? And are we willing to put in the work to get to that place? That work being communicating that vision, having the courage, right? We may be shifting within a culture that now we've got a higher level of accountability, right? We're not letting behaviors and attitudes slide. We're setting those expectations. We're willing to lose people, right? We may work short, but we're going to work better because we don't have negative influences in the organization, right? We'll hear a lot of people, or I will work with clients that say, oh, but we're short staffed. We can't lose so-and-so. Really? Well, have you heard of addition by subtraction? Or are you willing to keep that person and lose the good people? So, it takes a lot of courage to decide that you want to get to that next place in culture. I hope that answered your question.
No, it did. That was great.
It's good, yeah. We took our people through a book on integrity by Dr. Henry Cloud. He used the analogy of a wake, a boat going through the water leaves a wake, and that wake ripples and has effect across the organization. And are you leaving a good wake or bad wake? And a lot of organizations keep boats that are producing bad wakes because they produce, but they affect a lot of other people. So I guess in closing, Kevin, if you had one thing to say to a company or leader who wants to take that first step, they've been, motivated by what you've talked about today, what would be your, take this first step recommendation?
Yeah. First step is really identify a culture driver, right? Who is that individual in the organization who's willing to commit, right? And that does not necessarily have to be at the C-suite. It could be, your L&D person within the HR department. But who's going to be that culture driver to really be able to assess where you are, whether that would be through engagement surveys or just literal observations and one-on-one conversations, but someone who is going to own culture and then infiltrate the organization up to the C-suite, down to the frontline workers. And again, that's not to be confused with everything falls on that individual's shoulders. They are just the culture driver, the connector within the organization to be able to come forward and speak transparently and freely around the changes that need to be made, what needs to be addressed, what do we keep doing, what do we stop doing, what do we start doing.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that organizational self-awareness and the leaders really taking a hard look at that. That's great advice. Great conversation today, Kevin. I know that you're a great asset to BetterCulture, and I can see why your experience is moving the needle for them. So appreciate you spending time with us on the Skillwork Forum. As you noted before we got on air here, we could spend all day talking about this. We've literally just skimmed the surface, but hopefully just kind of piqued some interest today. And for those of you that tune in to us here on the Skillwork Forum, we really appreciate it. We hope this discussion made a positive impact, maybe added some value to your organization or even to your life today. And remember, Skillwork, our company, we exist to connect outstanding people, outstanding skilled tradesmen, to companies that are looking to drive things forward, to great companies with great culture. That's what we do. So if you find yourself in need of skilled labor that have the right talent, aptitude, and culture to help you move forward, reach out to us at Skillwork. Give us a call or reach out to us on our website. One more thing, if you enjoyed the conversation with Kevin today, go out there to where you can download any podcast, take a look at the other shows we've done, maybe even like or subscribe and follow us here. It really helps us out a lot. Until next time, God bless and have a great day.
This is Brett Elliott, CEO and co-founder at Skillwork. Prior to starting Skillwork, I spent over 30 years in the food manufacturing space. From literally starting out cleaning the restrooms to becoming the maintenance manager, then the plant manager, to eventually becoming the president and owner, I've seen the manufacturing world from many perspectives. And like many of you, I've seen firsthand the growing need for higher skilled workers, while at the same time experiencing the shortage of this skilled talent. I started Skillwork to address that need. I knew the headhunter and the local temp agency models were not the solution. If you're experiencing the same shortage of talent at your facility, we would love to connect you with our team. Give us a call at 402-447-7058 or visit us online at skillwork.com.